I think She-Hulk encompasses everything wrong with the MCU. A ton of creators who don't know anything about the character and don't really give a shit about their audience either. Hey, what's up, nerd fam? This is your boy Gashan. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, we're talking about She-Hulk. This is the series review for it. I'm a bit late. Work was crazy, but I got a lot of videos that I got to come out with because there are a lot of things that have been coming out that I've been able to catch, but just haven't really been able to make a video for. But let's dive right into it. I want to say first and foremost that when I heard about She-Hulk like over a year ago, I was actually excited because I figured this would be a show that could tackle some of the Hulk lore, because I remember there's some type of rule in place for Hulk because I guess he's partially owned by Universal. They can't have his own series. So I figured this would be a cool show where they could both, you know, literally smash villains together. Pause. But literally fight, do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, expand on their lore. Maybe Betty comes, maybe have a new Thunderbolt, Ross, also talk about the stuff that Jen is doing in the courtroom. Tons of things. I thought this would have been a really, really exciting series with a nice balance of some, I guess, something procedural. I don't know. But we got what we got, which was this. And I would say that this show is plagued by two parts of a problem. The first is the creators not caring or just not knowing the characters that they're putting on screen. And then the second would be them not even understanding the audience that is watching and or critiquing their show. So let's get into the first thing, which is just the characters. The title character, She-Hulk, they don't understand. I actually made this in my first video, which I was reviewing episodes 1 through 3, and I was going to do it in parts like that, but there was just so much going on, I figured I'd just put it in this final review. Now, first and foremost, obviously She-Hulk, when it comes to her character as Jen, her relationship with Bruce is completely different. You know, her dad was kind of a shitty dad, her mom died, and they kind of bonded together, her and Bruce, about having shitty dads, right? That was a big part of their thing. They were like each other's support system as kids. That wasn't here, as well as how she views She-Hulk, the transformation, as something that's liberating for her versus a curse, which is what Bruce sees it as. Now, mind you, she's kind of ashamed of the Hulk. She doesn't like the fact that people like the Hulk form, her She-Hulk form, more than Jen, whereas in the book it was like, look, like this part is always getting ignored, so I'm gonna stay She-Hulk so I can get the attention and I can be my liberated self. And what are you gonna do? Because I can just bash your head through a wall if you really wanted to say something to me, right? And when they even brought out certain characters like Titania, which admittedly aren't like these super fleshed out characters, this was their chance to do so and offer her a physical threat that would have been exciting to see on film. Now, she wasn't She-Hulk, like in that She-Hulk form, for too much in this show, and they say that had to do with budget things. I'm not really sure how true that is. I'm not sure if it really is that or it's just a creative choice because they just didn't want to focus on that. I would lean on probably the second one just because this show seemed to not really give a shit about the superhero part. It was literally just Jen's trials and tribulations, which honestly didn't really make much sense anyway, because in the book, she's actually a very good lawyer in whatever form she's in. In this show, she kind of sucks at her job, which is also a failure to that character. So she wasn't really good at being a Hulk. Even the way she became the Hulk didn't really make much sense. It made much more sense when there was like a mob hit. He had to give her a whole transfusion of blood, which gave her that ability to transform, versus her just, you know, getting cut, a little bit of blood going in, and she transforms. Also, the whole thing about her just being able to control her anger because she's a woman is weird, because obviously the book does touch on the fact that the Hulk, the fact that he has other personality is because of the abuse that he got from his father. Even like the Eric Bana films, even though we don't want to talk about those, also kind of touch on that particular thing. But obviously there was a particular message that they wanted to bash you over the head with, which goes into the second thing we're going to talk about in a little bit. But still, characters. They introduced the Wrecking Crew and did nothing with it. And those are characters that, once again, not super duper fleshed out, but important enough to when they fight Thor, there's some cool things you could have done. What did Emma Blonsky or Abomination become? What was that about? You know, there were so many things they could have introduced. And even like the weird introduction of Scar at the end, which is really for nothing because a whole Planet Hulk thing that needs to happen for Scar to even be a thing didn't happen. As well as Daredevil just getting shoehorned in there. And obviously because he's about to have a show, you just pray to God that this isn't the Daredevil that we get in that show. We hope that's not what it is. But it's possible that Disney Plus will destroy that character too. The fourth wall breaking thing, which is not the worst in the world, is just that it's weird how this show decided to emulate a comic that Dan Slott wrote for She-Hulk that nobody really paid attention to, which was like I forgot what it was called. I'm forgetting the name of it. Like my editor will put it up. But not the Savage She-Hulk, which actually sold quite a bit more, right? That's a big deal, right? Once again, this character was disrespected from the beginning, wasn't allowed to be good in She-Hulk form, wasn't necessarily great in the attorney form. She was kind of a shitty person, and her friends were actually better people than she was. I mean, remember that whole thing with the whole costume malfunction, and she just didn't look at the directions and didn't ask enough questions to even be bested by Matt Murdock in court. Like, that was such an easy thing for her to have to get. Even the whole copyright law thing, she just seemed very inept at her job. And that's kind of sad, right? Now, as far as the audience, now I watched several things with Jessica Gao, that's a person who made this, talking about how they predicted years ahead of time that people would have this type of response to this show. And I think that shows a lot of projection, because a lot of the things that were lobbied at this show had nothing to do with the fact that She-Hulk was a woman. Because She-Hulk in itself, a lot of people who know She-Hulk, people who read the comics and all that, actually really like the character. We know she's a derivative of the Hulk, but they found in the comic a way for her to differentiate from her cousin. As I mentioned before, how she feels about the Hulk and her particular journey make the character unique in that nature. Yes, they're both Hulks. Yes, she got her powers from him, but she is different. So no one was ever like, oh, why does she have to be a she? That's not what happened. But they were taking the projections or the criticisms from some of the other projects that happened to be led by women that weren't good and thinking they're just going to say the same thing about this, rather than being able to compartmentalize and honestly be genuine about their response and just, make the show a good one, right? So they didn't really know their audience because they were like, we want to make this an Ally McBeal type of show. Are the people who watch Ally McBeal and all that, are those the same type of people who are going to watch this show? Be honest, they're not interested in watching a show like that. So you made a show that it looked like the main audience, like the general audience, even because look, I am more of a comic book purist when it comes to that, and I want it to be more accurate. But even the people who don't care about that, they want to see superhero stuff, and that's fine. And this you could have a little bit of a balance of that, but this just wasn't good. And some of the parts weren't really even funny. Some of it was, like, I forget the girl's name that was with Wong. She was funny. She was one of the best parts of the show, which is crazy. And it's not like Tatiana Maslany isn't talented. The actors and everybody in here are actually talented. But the creative direction of the show just ruined it, because the whole show was just to get back at the trolls. Like, even the main villains were internet trolls. They were pretty much obsessed with this group that they put them in the show. You wanted to show them that it didn't matter, but in the end, you made a show revolving around them. And even when they changed the ending, now mind you, where the ending was going, obviously they made it purposely super ridiculous, but that would have been better than whatever they changed it to after they met the Kevin robot. Oh yeah, we're just gonna make Abomination accountable for what he's doing, and I'm just gonna take the Hulk King guy to court and all that. And you're like, okay, and that seemed like it was better. This ending seemed like it was getting back at the trolls. So you predicted that they would say that the show was just horrible, and then you said, yes, so let's just make a horrible show in response. Okay, I guess, right? And I guess they don't think it is, and they're going to say it's all about all types of isms, and it's because she's a woman. No. In the MCU, especially a lot of nerds love looking at things that have strong women, especially when they're attractive. She-Hulk's attractive. The actress that plays her is actually attractive. They wouldn't have a hard time getting behind that. We know these things. It's actually been proven with other things that aren't Marvel related. Remember back when everyone was lobbying for Black Widow to have some type of movie way before they killed her, right? Whether it was her by herself or her and Hawkeye, people wanted it then when it was fresh. And remember, this fan base is mostly dudes. So it's not that's not a thing. That narrative doesn't make sense. But when you had the Captain Marvels come out, then it gets like, ugh, you know, or like the Birds of Prey type of movies that come out in DC, you go, ugh, because you know what they're trying to say, you know, women powerful only when dudes suck. And that was definitely something very, very clear here. And remember, that audience, that troll audience, those are most of the people who are watching the show, who actually put money towards the character, who bought the comics, and so on and so forth. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. Let me know. Did you love this series? Did you not? Obviously, I didn't say everything in here, but this is just my general consensus from watching this series and knowing the character before this from source material, which I do lean on. That is my bias / preference. Let me know what you think. And to the nerd.